Idly ho, Drinkerinos. We are back for episode 11 of the Idaho Booze Podcast. On this episode, we are streaming along with Sockeye Brewing. Sockeye Marketing Director and great all-around guy, Tyson Garden. He's on the pod to talk all things Sockeye. Talk about their beers, including Sockeye's ultra cool and amazing Chronicles barrel-aged program. Plus, we talk can art, brand management, all the fun stuff you guys want to hear about, and why Sockeye has had such a resurgence in the market as of late, at least in my opinion. Hint, I'll just give you a little hint here, it's all about the liquid. In brew news, it's a huge win for local breweries that could end up saving you money, and it's a return of everybody's favorite craft beer podcast segment, Let's Get Sciencey. As microbiologists at the University of Idaho, you know what? I'm not going to ruin it for you. All that plus ice cream parlor beers and more in Friday Night Pints. That's all coming up on the Idaho Booze Podcast with me, Steve Kuntz. This show is sponsored by Boise Beer Buddies. When me and my friends are chopping it up at the local watering hole, say Good Apple Tap House or Twin Falls Sandwich Company, Bert's Growler Garage, I'm always watching the bar to see what people are ordering and if they are carrying that Boise Beer Buddies card. Because if you do frequent pretty much any craft beer bar or brewery in or around Idaho and you aren't using your Beer Buddies card, well, we can't be friends. The Beer Buddies card doesn't just unlock amazing deals like $1 off your first beer at Bert's, 20% off your entire bill at Twin Falls Sandwich Company, or BOGO Tuesdays at Boise Brewing. It also unlocks an entire world of craft beerdom with the Boise Beer Buddies app by showing you other bars, restaurants, and breweries where you can be saving money and making new friends like me. Let's face it, you're already buying beer. Now be a buddy. Get your Boise Beer Buddies membership today at boisebeerbuddies.com, and as a special treat, use promo code BOOZEPOD, all one word, BOOZEPOD, and get a free year-long membership when you purchase one. That's promo code BOOZEPOD for buy one, get one free Boise Beer Buddy card. Be a buddy. Sign up for Boise Beer Buddies today. Welcome back to the show. Be sure to use that promo code for buy one, get one free Boise Beer Buddies cards. Those cards really do save you a lot. I got to tell you, man, I use that card all the time. And it's only $25. Buy one, get one free. You can get one for your wife, your girlfriend, your husband, whoever. They do save you a lot on drinks all over the state and even into Nevada, Oregon, and Utah. That promo code again is BOOZEPOD. Use the code, people. Save some bucks. Get that Boise Beer Buddies card. Well, we're talking Sockeye today, and I'm just going to give you the quick version of Sockeye and my relationship with that brewery. When I first moved to Idaho from Utah, we were in Twin, and you could buy craft beer at either Rudy's or Costco. That was pretty much it. And you had craft all over town, so that was good. But anything you wanted to take home was pretty much at Rudy's or Costco. And Costco's selection wasn't that great. Rudy's was, so they did a good job at Rudy's, but Costco, not so much. They did have Dagger Falls 24-pack suitcases, and they were $20. Now, coming from Utah, where you had to buy, and still have to buy, any good beer in singles. So 6-packs are like 12, 13, 14 bucks at this time. 24 packs, more like $50 and over. Man, these suitcases, they were like manna from heaven. Oh my God. I remember the first time I saw them, I think I bought 2. So over the course of a year and a half, I really got into Dagger. I discovered Helldiver Pale Ale, Powerhouse Porter, Seven Devils Imperial Stout, and other Sockeye beers that I thought were great. I mean, really nice local beers. I like local. So it was good to support that brand. Now, I moved up to Boise. This was after I wrote my book. So I wrote my book in 2013, and I got to meet Josh King, Kevin Bolin, Todd Marshall, Tyler Bell while I was writing my book. And that was really cool. They were super nice to me. They let me in. They let me take pictures. They let me interview everyone. And Josh and I got along really well. So, and as did Todd and Tyler and I, we all got along pretty well. So I moved up to Boise, and my son Cameron started playing football at LeBois, and he met a kid that he played with named Peyton, and this guy, Peyton Mills, and they became friends. So I met Peyton's dad, who turned out to be a guy named Kevin Mills. I had just written the beer book, and I recognized the name from something, so I went back into my notes, looked it up, and saw that Kevin Mills founded Sockeye back in the day, But it was weird. There was no way this was him, right? The coincidence would be too much. Well, it was weird, and it was him. And we became pretty good friends over craft beer. He started Sockeye in a garage on Federal Way, and soon thereafter hired Josh King. Then moved everything to the Sockeye Brew Pub on Cole Road, and shortly after that sold it to Fred and Linda Sherman. So I started working at Albertsons on 16th and State as the growler station manager. Remember those? And man, it wasn't too long before I had Todd and Tyler, who were Sockeye's crack sales team at that time, right in my face, selling me on all sorts of beers. And we did what was probably the first ever growler station tap takeover with Sockeye. And Josh came out to help sling growlers, so I got to hang out with him some more, which was great. And that's when I met the owners of Sockeye, Fred and Linda Sherman. They came by, said hi, and would often come by over the course of my 8 months at Albertsons. And it was Linda who would get the most upset at me if I didn't have a Sockeye beer on, which I always thought was very endearing. And luckily for me, it wouldn't be more than one time in a row where they would come by without a Sockeye beer being on my taps there at the downtown Albertsons. So we miss them, Fred and Linda. They passed recently, and we do miss them. So RIP to them. And while I was at Edge, I would often go to Sockeye. I'd go over there. It was a short trip. They were just down on Fairview. And man, if I needed to bounce ideas off anybody, if I needed some advice or anything like that, Josh, Todd, Tyler, all those guys would help me out along with the rest of the crew. Corey was there. Kevin Bolin was there. Yeti, of course. And all the rest of the crew over at Sockeye were super nice to me. So it was nice that they were that way. We were kind of a burgeoning craft beer community then. Edge started with a bunch of other breweries in 2015. So it was just like a neat little thing where we could kind of hang out. We were all competitors, but we really were pushing each other to better and better places. So, man, Sockeye has had some of the best brewers in Idaho. It's not really an opinion. It's a fact. Josh King, he's won 1 million awards over there at Sockeye. Kevin Bolin won a bunch of awards at Grand Teton before going out to Sockeye, where he won more. I've seen him win a bunch, personally, him and Josh. Tim Spanbauer, man, that guy was brewing up some good stuff at Table Rock before he headed over to Sockeye and took over their barrel age program. Derek Brown, man, he brews some amazing beers right now at Highlander out there in Salmon, and really brewed some awesome beers at Woodland Empire and Lost Grove. Brian Garcia Brown, here's a guy I worked with at Edge. Had him from a pup. He's won a bunch of medals over the years. He's over there at Sockeye now. Tyler Evans did a really nice job with us at Edge. He was our assistant brewer, and he came up with a lot of fun beers that were still being drank when that place closed, including Habanero Cream Ale, which was his baby. And he did a great job, I thought, at Powderhouse as the head brewer before moving on to Sockeye to take over their packaging line, which he's doing now. So there's a lot of talent in that building, and I think it shows. I mean, then you got their back of house guys. I mean, Tyson, who you're going to hear from here in a little bit, and Ben, who's their new sales guy. Well, he's been there for like 4 years. Anyway, Ben came up with the Chronicle series, which is just an amazing thing. I mean, it's like a wine club except for barrel-aged beers. And the ones they're putting out, just great. They're on tap in bottles at the 2 Sockeye locations. Plus, you can be a part of this Chronicles program and get them every other month or whenever they put them out. I think Tyson talks about it. We talked about one in the upcoming interview called Baklava, and that beer is a banger. Believe me when I tell you that beer is special. So we'll talk about that in Friday Night Pints. The 2 collabs they've done so far this year, really good stuff. Man, that Czech Pale Lager that they did with Prost, super clean, tasty, just a great beer. And the Odell collab, so refreshing. Nice golden ale. Sort of reminds me of that old beer, Sweet As. Remember that beer? I think that's still around. Their team overall, just a lot of experience in that building. Over 70 years of brewing experience. And it really does show in the liquid at Sockeye. Now, to me, that brewery has grown and gotten better and better with time. The most, I think, here in Idaho, Sockeye is improving by leaps and bounds in the years since I started drinking them. And they started out pretty good. I liked Dagger back when it was in suitcases in Costco, which it still is. not $20 anymore. Sockeye has found ways to innovate and deliver better liquid, not only for its cores, but in the barrel age and one-offs as well. If you haven't had it in a while, I recommend picking up a Dagger on draft or in the can. It's still hoppy as hell. Danky, bitter. Ugh. But now, clean. It's got a cleaner water chemistry. I feel like the yeast is really doing its work better, leaving a nice clean beer. Gone are sort of the after flavors that it used to have back in the day. It's just a really bright beer now. The hops are so much brighter. I know they've changed them up a little bit here and there, but the flavor profile is still there, still hoppy, still dank, still bitter, but just so much cleaner and such a better drinking experience now than 14 years ago. Powerhouse Porter, just a cleaner beer. They're messing with the water chemistry in there. You can tell because that porter pops with that chocolate and that bitterness. Oh, great beer. And the barrel aged stuff that goes beyond Seven Devils. Back in the day, it was just Seven Devils that they put in a barrel and then brought that out once a year. Now, old ales, wheat wines, barley wines, all over the beer menu. So really kudos to Sockeye for not standing still, and even now, after the passing of Fred and Linda, Josh King and Janice Skinner took the reins and they've just kept everything going so smoothly. Going into 2025, Sockeye is producing more quality beer than just about any other brewery in Idaho. With the numerous one-offs, firkins, barrel-aged beers that it pumps out of its far west Boise brewery, Sockeye has earned its reputation as one of Idaho's best breweries for a lot of reasons. The beer is great, but the people at Sockeye make it special. My next guest is one of those exceptional people, Tyson Carden. I know Tyson. I got to know him when he started working at Powder House with Tyler, and we would chat at different events. I'd go over and check on Tyler, make sure he was doing all right. I missed him, I had to go and see how he was doing at his new brewery, see his new equipment, all that fun stuff. So I got to meet Tyson while I was doing that. We talked a lot about even can art and brands and stuff back then. And you'll see in the interview coming up that we haven't stopped. I mean, we're still having that same conversation we had back then. So Tyson, great dude, as you will find out. He's carrying on that legacy of guys like Todd Marshall, Tyler Bell, Kevin Bolin, Kevin Mills, and everyone else who has gone through that place. That legacy is of being Idaho's most consistently excellent homegrown brewery. And it's not lost on guys like Tyson. He gets it. He understands why Sockeye is so important, and he's doing a hell of a job marketing that brand. Hear exactly how he's carrying on that legacy next on the Idaho Booze Podcast. The show is brought to you by Like Button and LikeButton.us. You own a company and it just made a sale. Congratulations. But do you know how much money you spent to get that sale? Did that customer just walk in the door to escape the blazing heat, or were they fed ads on their favorite mobile game, then on social media, then on Google, then on their streaming service before they decided to visit you? So how much did you spend to get that customer? At Like Button, we will not only set up a proven sales funnel that will generate leads, but with our unbeatable transparency, you will know exactly how much you spent to acquire that customer. Then Like Button will optimize so the next customers you get come in cheaper, so more money ends up in your pocket. Stop wasting money on ads that don't generate more money for you. Get back to doing what you love and let Like Button do the rest. Go to likebutton.us and sign up for a free consultation today. That's likebutton.us. Welcome back. We are here at the Idaho Booze Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Kuntz. And we are here with none other than Tyson Carden from Sockeye Brewing Company. Tyson, what's going on, buddy?
How are you, man? Nice to see you.
So, Tyson, tell us what you do at Sockeye Brewing.
So, all things marketing. You've seen Sockeye's logo, Sockeye's brand somewhere, social media, through the airwaves, you name it, on a can, on a design, anything like that. It's probably hit my desk at one point, or guaranteed it's hit my desk at one point. So anything marketing related funnels through my desk.
And how long have you been doing that over there at Sockeye?
I started in 2017, so coming up on, what is that? Coming up on 8 years here shortly.
That's amazing. I can't believe it's been that long. I remember when you got hired. Where were you, and what were you doing before you were at Sockeye?
So pre-Sockeye, I was the Powder House guy. I actually was part of kind of the upstart there, and kind of left thinking, the beer industry wasn't for me, and Sockeye had a compelling story, I think, that we're still telling to this day. So it was kind of a good fit for all of us. And shoot, 8 years later, I like to still think it is. So that's pretty cool.
Well, let's get into that story a little bit. What is the Sockeye story? Why are how do you find your beer names, and what's sort of the story going on over there at Sockeye these days?
I'd say, for people that know Sockeye or have known Sockeye for years, we've been around since 96. So coming up on, 30 years here in a couple of years. That's, 3 decades spanning. A lot has changed, obviously. We started in a humble warehouse off of Federal Way here in Boise, Idaho. Um, had the Coal Road Pub. We have talked about in the past. The Coal Road Pub is still to this day like this thing that people talk about with a lot of like looking back. Oh, how like those were the days, or those were the times. To 2012, 2014, 10 to 12 years ago, we started canning and really started ramping up distribution. Your question is as far as how we get our names. Originally, a lot of our names were Idaho landmarks, Idaho, Dagger Falls. We have Angels Perch Amber. Some of those powerhouse porters, some of those core beers that stuck with us throughout the years were named after rapids of mountain, scapes, you name it, places in the Sawtooth. So that mentality really hasn't changed on how we come up with names, but obviously we ran out of landmarks to an extent. So the way I say things are changing now, it's just exciting to branch out and really kind of hone in on things. One of the beers that I'm pretty stoked about was Politics and God, and we'll talk about our Chronicles programs shortly. But Politics and God, it's a big wheat wine barrel age, part of the Chronicles program. And that, no landmark there. It's just the two things you're never supposed to talk about when drinking a big 14% beer. So we've gotten a little more crafty with our names, I would say, over the years, for sure.
No pun intended. So let's get into the Chronicles program. This is something that was a brainchild of your sales director, if I'm not mistaken. Ben came up with this.
Correct. Ben Sobchak. We've always talked about doing a barrel program, but didn't really have a good idea of one, how to throw it together effectively, and two, how do you make beers? We've done barrel aged beer forever, but how do you make more interesting, beers that truly tell a story and show what our brewers are capable of? So yeah, Ben Sobchak a couple years ago had this kind of crazy idea to throw this thing together, and it's kind of taken off for us.
Yeah, and just go through it really quick. It's a subscription program, kind of like joining like a wine club or something like that, where you get beers like every month, every 6 months, every quarter. How does that sort of work?
So we'll have quarterly releases, so 4 releases a year. You get bottles of that. We have an option where some people may get a wearable, like a nice hoodie, a nice jacket, something along those lines. If people are interested, you get some glassware, some pub discounts, but mainly focused around the beer. And again, like you mentioned, like a wine program almost. These are beers that initially are only available to Chronicles members. You get your allotment, and it's always a very cool time when we have Chronicles pickup. We have members come in, they get to sample the beer, they get to talk about the beer, and it's truly like a very impassioned group of people. And this is our second year doing it, and we anticipate it growing into next year too. It's just cool to see the amount of engagement and beers that otherwise we wouldn't be brewing, big 15% wheat wines, Midnight Cuvée, which is an annual release. So every year it's a Solera method blend of, anywhere from 3 to 5 dark beers. Our most recent release in July was Baklava, which is a dessert stout. Without being overtly sweet, it, has the brown sugar, has the honey, has cinnamon, vanilla, and then it was actually aged and conditioned on nuts. So you kind of get that like pistachio, pecan-y character to it without being, again, overtly dessert stout. So it's a cool program to let our brewers try stuff they've always talked about, and then engaging with the beer community a little deeper than we have in the past.
So these sound like beers that, I know having worked at a couple breweries, this is something that every brewer wants to do, but there's never, the sales guy's always like, no, you can't do that. Like, we've got other things to do. In this case, the sales guy actually went to your brewing team and was like, hey guys, what do you think about brewing stuff like this or that? Were these things that you guys were already brewing at Sockeye, or are these all like brand new beers that you decided to brew just for this program?
Right. These are all brand new beers. So beers that kind of started as an idea, maybe it was the back of a notebook, back of a, receipt paper. Like these are cool things that, a lot of us have on our phone, that notes app, ideas of beers that may never happen, but they're there. And a lot of these are coming from that, you know, a couple beers deep, just having a good time, drinking cool beers and discussing beer amongst each other. We're writing those down, and then years later they're becoming beers. So that's kind of the story behind Chronicles in general is, let's have fun with this and do things like push the boundaries. Baklava was such an intense process beer to add the nuts. How do you do that effectively without making it disgusting? How do you add vanilla properly, cinnamon in the right ratios to make it taste like a
How do
dessert?
you do this?
Again,
I think that's
yeah.
something a lot of brewers go into when they brew a beer. How do I make this without it being disgusting?
Right.
That's a huge
So
thing.
all these intensive processes are one a testament to what they're capable of doing, but also it just tells a cool story of like, yeah, these are all the beers we just dreamed of making. Again, not beers that we've ever had in our portfolio before.
So you couldn't do this. Obviously, you have Ben out there who's gonna put it out and sell it and do everything. We have you who's gonna market it and come up. I'm sure you help come up with like the name and maybe the graphic and whatever else. But you really couldn't get it done without your brewers. So talk about your brewers for a little bit. Just the kind of couple guys that have been there the longest and what they bring to this Chronicles program.
We've got three brewers that are pretty staples here at Sockeye. A lot of people know them. Josh King, our owner and director of brewing operations, kind of the man behind the magic, the man behind the curtain. Been with Sockeye since the early 2000s, so he's kind of the old hat who's been running the show for quite a while. The creator of Dagger Falls and just about any beer. We joke the sales guys after you hit a certain point, it's like, oh, the sales guys get their beer. Well, I one time made the mistake of asking, like, "Hey, Josh, what is your beer?" And he's like, "What beer isn't my beer?" Like, so that does exist. There, like, guy's he's a legend in his own right around these parts.
He's a
Corey
legend over
Walls,
here in these parts too. I love that guy. He's a great
right?
dude. Corey,
So
go ahead.
Corey
We care,
Corey
Corey.
Corey Walls started in the pub, worked his way into just helping wash kegs and everything like that. And this is, I forgive me for not knowing the exact number of years, but several years ago, worked his way into getting into the brewery, and now just slays it over there. In fact, baklava was I keep going back to that beer. That was a big part of his kind of brainchild, what he kind of came up with. Obviously, it's all them kind of together, but kudos to Corey for figuring that one out. Uh, Tim Spambauer came from formerly Table Rock years ago, for those that remember. Um, just a wealth of brewing information. For a long time, we used to call him the barrel aging guy around the brewery. He was the guy who was the barrel whisperer for a long time. So a lot of our barrel aging projects, funneled through his brain before they actually went into the barrel. So just a legend too in the brewing industry. And then we recently added Brian Garcia Brown, fantastic addition to the brew team. He's been one of those, guys that we've gotten along with over the years, and seeing him in his creative process and his brewing processes, and what it has added to our brewing process here at Sockeye has been really cool to watch. It's only been a few months, but it's been a pleasure having him here, and it feels like he's been here a lot longer than a couple months.
So my two young bucks that I had at Edge that were my brewing team were after Carrie left was Brian and this other guy named David Torres, who is only the head brewer at Payette now. So I've got one of the brewers at Sockeye, where you guys are making outstanding stuff right now, and then my guy Torres over at Payette, who's actually doing a really great job over there as well. So I couldn't be prouder of the two guys, and I should be getting thank you cards from you guys every couple of months. Just for,
Thank you, Steve. We
just
appreciate
for
you, Steve.
all the work I put in to those two. I
Yeah,
love
they're
them. I
they're they're
love them.
they're both fantastic, and obviously I can speak to Brian specifically, just working with him on a daily basis. Awesome to walk into the brewery, see him working around here. But again, it took him very little time to fit in and
He's the
start
nicest guy in the
having his
whole
thumbprint on
world.
this place to an extent. So it's awesome having him around.
He's the nicest guy in the whole wide world. Like I wish nothing but the best for him. Last time I was at Sockeye, actually, I ran into him. So and he's going to be a great dude around. He's just an awesome guy.
Also big music fan, gets deep into like some of the deep like caverns of music genres and stuff like that. So I've enjoyed that. Like guy can bounce some ideas off and talk
He's not
shows and
afraid to
stuff.
chat
So
about it either, I don't think. And then you have another former Edge guy over there as well, too, Tyler Evans. Is that correct? He's
yep,
over there running your packaging.
that's correct.
Yeah.
So Tyler Evans and I actually worked at Powder House together for years.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the head brewer there. Very happy to have him along. Really put the his take on the warehouse and the processes down there, and has done a very fantastic job in packaging.
I'm gonna have Tyler on one of these days because I just love talking to the guy, and but he's got some takes on beer that I find interesting and a lot of fun.
Well, I mean, there's a reason his Instagram handle is too many hobbies. The guy's
Too
got
many.
every hobby under the sun.
Yeah.
But
He
yeah,
really
in fact,
does.
I'm sure you remember back in the Edge days, the pepper beer, habanero cream ales, things like that. We
Oh
put out
yeah.
a pepper beer, and of course, who did we employ their expertise?
Got to get the Pepper Man.
The only guy that can speak and whisper pepper is Tyler Evans around.
He's unbelievable. He used to create one of my favorite pranks. He's got a couple pranks that I really love that he did, but that was really good was he would create a wing sauce and he'd say, "Hey everybody, I made a wing sauce and don't worry, it's not too hot or whatever." And it would just be straight up like scorpion pepper or Reaper, Carolina Reaper, just kind of, I guess he would mash it down and just put it on a wing and say, "Here you go." Some poor bastard would grab it and eat it. Not me. I was like, I fell for it almost once. I smelled it and I was like, no, no, I can already tell what's going on here.
That's borderline like Dumb and Dumber, when they sneak the hot chilies into the guy's burger.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if I want to toy around with that, man.
Hey, you know what? If you fell for it, that's your problem. And people would fall for it. It was amazing. Always a good time when people fell for that. So that's cool. There's a lot of I love going over there to say hi because like a lot of familiar faces for me over there. So yeah, I think it's great that you guys have such a nice like continuity of people working over there. And I think, and I mean, you could tell me how has that helped sort of kind of with the brewery as it's grown over the last 8 years that you've been there.
Little roadblocks that we may have had in the past, like Tyler Evans, for example. Um, we have a canning line for those who've ever seen it. It's a big horseshoe canning line. It's got conveyors everywhere, kind of along the way. It's got a 6-pack machine that puts the little holders on, and then a case erector, so it puts it in boxes if that's where it's going. It's not exactly something that's easy to change over. But Tyler Evans and his craftiness and his ability over in the packaging area, we were able to manipulate it and build into that process the 19.2s, like packaging 19.2s cans, which has drastically changed our business, right? Having a 19.2 option, like a single serve option, is like borderline and non-negotiable if you're going to grow in this day and age. Jacksons, Mavericks, things like that. Thrive on those, and we didn't have that option. We didn't really have the option of changing the canning line over till we got the expertise of someone who can understand how to change over the machine from one size to the other. So that's pretty cool. Obviously, having all the brewers, having Ben, the addition of Ben has been cool too. Just a lot of people that understand the chemistry, the science, the ins and outs of beer, now having that dialogue way more frequently. And I'm not saying we weren't having that, but now more than ever, we understand that those types of conversations across departments need to happen. So it's definitely affected the brewery in a positive manner.
Yeah, I'm sure just communication is a lot easier when you have people that have been there for as long as they have. They're a little bit more, set and they know what their future is. They know that, they're valued and all that good stuff, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I see every time I go there. When I see everyone working, Josh obviously sits up in a throne. It's a literal throne now. He's up there he has. I don't know if it's a whip. It's definitely like some type of. It's definitely is for striking people. I don't know, but he can come on and he can talk about it when he wants, whenever he wants.
I was going to say, I plead the fifth.
No, you don't need to talk about that. This is just what I've seen. And if he wants to come on and talk about it, he can do that. It's fine with me. So yeah, and a couple other beers that I just kind of wanted to talk about, just kind of how these beers have grown and changed. Dagger Falls. Let's just start with that one because I've long been a fan of Dagger Falls. I've been purchasing suitcases of it. I think since I moved to Idaho, maybe 14, 13 years ago, whenever it was. And that beer to me, it's always got the same like feel, but it always like every couple of years, it seems like maybe every 2 or 3 years, it's got a little something different going on. So talk about kind of evolution of that beer and where it's at right now.
The base recipe, I can't speak to exact changes that have been made, if there's been substitutions, things like that. But what I can say, a lot of it comes down to our growth in understanding water chemistry, how water chemistry affects hops, how that water chemistry affects like how soft the hop may feel or taste or feel on the mouth, or whatever. Those types of adjustments have been made, and slight adjustments to that. Obviously, as a beer person yourself, like are noticeable, and it's
I
almost like
see
a
you say.
cleaning up of the process. And I appreciate what the guys have done to do take something like Dagger and keep it fresh by making minor adjustments, maybe to the water chemistry or the pH of the mash. Those subtle adjustments, again, may not be recipe adjustments, but they're significant enough that it maybe makes the beer last a little longer on the shelf, or um, dialing in our canning line, we get lower dissolved oxygen levels, so the beer is more shelf stable. So there's just always getting better. Ultimately, is what we're striving for, and you can see that in that beer alone from 10 years ago to now, the adjustments that have been made in that continual improvement process.
Yeah, and it's really tough if you're someone like Josh or whoever back there in the brewery who actually came up with the recipes for some of these beers to maybe take a step back and look at them in that sort of way. But I feel like what you guys have done more than any brewery in the state is you have actually, and this is probably I would say in the last 5 or 6 years, you've really taken the craft part of the craft beer and you've really sort of worked on that the most. Would you say that's a fair thing to say with everyone that you have in the brewery and everything else?
I would absolutely say that, and it's kind of true to the beers we've released this year. Maltagrazzi Italian Pilsner,
Awesome beer.
newer style, fantastic execution using Ericlea malt from Italy.
It just makes me happy saying molto grazie. Molto grazie.
Maltagrazzi.
Molto grazie.
And the story behind the name I'll leave out of this. It's subtle, but I want people to learn, because I want that game of telephone to happen and tell me where you think that name came from, which it just means many things. It's nothing,
Italy.
no fair. There you go. But like that craft side of things, it shows in that beer alone. Using that Italian malt, is it absolutely necessary? Maybe not, but it really does impart something in the beer,
I mean,
that we
I think
believe
it
makes it
does.
kind of stand out.
It's different. It's a different pilsner. Like you don't have when you. So I'm getting. I mean, I'm in my 40s, so I'm not like old, but I'm old for a craft beer nerd. So like I'm drinking lighter beers now. I'm going for more. I go for pilsners a lot more than I used to, for sure. And man, last time I was over there, I had that beer. Maybe the last time I was over there to eat, I had that beer, and it was just like so good. I couldn't like my second beer was going to be hot, one of your insane 9% IPAs or Dagger or whatever. But I just went back to the Multigrazia. I just went back again and again. So yeah, I think it's an awesome beer, and I think that it really does some of that stuff that you guys are doing. When I talk about like the actual craft of it is coming through in beers like that, like Dagger, your newly released Oktoberfest. I mean, talk about that a little bit. Like you guys actually did brew that back in the spring, right? So you could release it now.
Yeah, just coming out of the spring, right before, I couldn't tell you the date, give or take end of May, and letting that thing lager all summer and just now releasing it was different than in years past. We have kind of a normal lagering timeline, and to let that thing sit in a tank and kind of just do its thing was one, true to style in the sense that Martin styles, that's how they were made, for
Artson
years
means
and
March,
years back.
people. That's
But that
German.
that that and that was cool.
Like
But like
just
to try to, you know, brew that to the best of our abilities. And what we've learned again is be true to the craft and it'll sell itself. It's already done really well. And it's only what we're talking August 28th today. So,
Well, I think it's like one of those things where you look at a bunch of, you guys have sort of weathered the storm as far as there was a huge influx of craft breweries that came in 2012 through 2015 or 16, something like that. And Sockeye was just always there. Like you said, started in 1996, back in Federal Way, and literally a storage unit. And it weathered that storm. And I think what happened with Sockeye was, instead of you guys like going out and trying to recreate the wheel or recreate what you guys do or anything like that, I think it was just really smart of you guys, of Fred and Linda and everybody, Janice and everyone over there, to just keep the people that they had and made sure that those people, I mean, like you said, Tim's last job was at Table Rock. Place has been closed for 10 years, maybe 15. I don't even know when they closed. 2010, 2011, something like that. So, yeah, I mean, so that's one of those things I think that is a really awesome lesson for anyone looking to maybe open a brewery. Wouldn't you say, like, if you're going to open a brewery, don't just bring people in and, let them go. Maybe bring people in and kind of cultivate them a little bit, right?
I mean, that speaks a lot to our ownership group, Fred and Linda, who have since passed, but Janice and Josh have also been stewards of pushing that culture forward.
You do. You have a ton of bartenders that have been, I remember some of the bartenders you have now when they were at Cole Road.
Yeah. And I think that just speaks as a testament to the culture around here. Again, don't hire people just to hire and put them in a butt in a seat type of thing. Make sure they fit the culture and make sure that you kind of have an eye to that culture in every decision you make on the daily. And, that's a true testament to where we're at as a company for Sockeye. So
let's talk about these 19.2s. You already mentioned them once. These things to me are a death sentence. I look at them and I think, no, that's a lot. But I used to sell 22s. So, who am I to judge? I think the 19.2s are a really awesome. They look awesome on the shelf. Like, and your guys' in particular look really good on the Hop Noxious. Looks amazing on the shelf. The Dagger looks amazing on the shelf. These beers look great on the shelf. So, in my mind, because I'm, like I said, old, I see a 19.2 and I'm like, man, that'd be great if it was like the Multigrazi. But what are you seeing selling the most in 19.2s?
Imperial IPAs. There's bigger brands, national brands that are putting Imperial IPAs out there that have something to the tune of a 70 to 80 share of this market. We're never going to be anywhere close to that. But as far as being in the Northwest, we're one of the few locals doing 19.2s, or Northwest breweries doing true 19.2s. I believe that the Imperial IPA thing kind of tells the story of people looking for value too. Like, I don't want to buy a 6-pack of something, but on my way home from work, I'm going to buy a 19.2 at the local Jackson's. And the high ABV is like, I got one beer all night and I'm good. I think there's a different culture of drinking, a different culture of buying beer. And when you can get a 19.2 9% Imperial IPA for $3.29, $3.39, it just speaks a different type of value that I think people right now, kind of in the pinch of the economy or whatever it might be, are kind of looking for.
God, especially now when you go to anywhere and a pint of beer is $7, $8, $9. I mean, I was at somewhere the other day where a pint of beer was $10. It's like, really? $10 for a pint of beer? Jeez. So yeah, when you talk about it like that, that makes total sense to me. You can spend $3 or $4, you can get a 19.2 of, your guys obnoxious. And, yeah, like you said, that's all you really need, right? That's 9.5% or something like that, right?
Yeah. So 9%, right on the nose. And again, that seems to be the sweet spot, right? 9%, 9.5%. And I think it just speaks a level of value. As long as we can make a beer that can be put in a can and sold at that price, we'll continue to do it, because it's a sweet spot for consumers right now, and it's a growing segment. And to be part of that growth in the Northwest is pretty cool for us.
Well, the number one rule of marketing people like us is you give the people what they want, right? So you've been doing this now for 8 years with Sockeye. You were with Powderhouse before that, and your background, I guess, is probably in graphic design or something like that, right? Is that right?
Nope, self-taught.
100% wrong.
Yeah, I actually started in retail. I was a
It's
retail
called
guy
being loud
through and
wrong,
through.
people. Loud wrong. So you started in retail. So tell us a little bit about your start in the marketing game, and then sort of how you've kind of grown and changed as you've gotten, more and more experienced.
Yeah, that 2010 to 2012 kind of era of craft beer that everyone was like, "Oh man, I'm a home brewer. I made a good beer once. I'm going to open a brewery."
Yeah.
That was definitely where I was with my buddy Tyler at the time. We were cranking out beer at 5 gallon batches, 10 gallon batches, and giving it to people at parties. And it was the heyday of craft beer, and no one could. It felt like we could do no wrong, right? Even a classically disgusting beer was like, well, you brewed it. It's pretty cool. So we were kind of going through that while we both worked at the same retail establishment. So fast forward a couple of years later, 2014, it was either 2014, 2015, we opened Powder House, and we were just kind of leading up to that, working on the branding, working on the business plan and stuff like that. And I really started to enjoy the branding part. I had gone to Boise State for marketing. But nothing graphic design related or branding related or you name it. So it's been a lot of I hate to say it this way because it sounds weird, but on the job experience, but real world experience has kind of led me to where I'm at today. And I'm pretty proud of the work that we put out here at Sockeye at this point. But yeah, I'm just a retail guy who thought he could make a couple good beers, I guess.
Hey, I came from TV. I mean, I came from TV, and I was like, this craft beer thing seems like fun, and I'm tired of making commercials, so maybe I'll try it out. It's different strokes for different folks.
I don't know that the amount of money that it takes to get into this industry on that end, like opening a business.
Oh,
I don't know
well,
that I'd ever go down that road ever again. But I'm very
yeah.
happy and proud to say that, give or take 10, 11 years later, I'm still in the industry and still.
Well, Potter House was interesting when it opened. You guys had a pretty decent, or it has a pretty decent location. Location's really good, actually. Not even pretty decent. It's really good. Sun Chinden. The market, the branding, everything I thought was spot on. I thought some of the beers are really good. It sounds you guys had the one Golden Ale or Pilsner or whatever it was that sold pretty well. The house beer, as I recall. So, what were some lessons you took away from that as you moved on and went to Sockeye?
I mean, the lessons that I'd say I learned at my time with Powder House was just you got to do what you got to do to get the job done. Sockeye similarly is not a large company. We're larger in scale and the amount that we brew, but it's still like everyone's in this boat together. If you're available to get something done and you have the capacity to do so, step in and help. So
Yeah.
from the ground up, the biggest lesson I learned was at Powder House. It was every day was go time. You learn a lot of hard work, a lot of little nuances of the business that translated really well over to my position here at Sockeye.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing I learned when I started at Epic was that if you don't know how to do something, learn how to do it. Like I had to train. They immediately put me on the tasting panel in the morning, which was really rough for me because I had never done anything like that before. But it was like, okay, well, you can drink beer, but can you taste beer? Do you know how to do that? It's something I had to learn how to do. And then, I'd never really done any cold calling to businesses or anything like that. I had to learn how to do that. And then later on at Edge, it was operations stuff. Have you ever ordered grain before? Do you know how much hops to order? Do you know how to set up a jockey box? All that stuff. I think it's a cornucopia of new things that you don't know how to do that you have to learn, right? As you're getting into it.
Yeah, and I think that with any business, that's just good stuff to know, good stuff to learn, and
Setting up
uh,
a jockey box. Everybody should
well,
know how to do
besides that one,
that.
but ultimately, like it's just this is a good industry to be in to just learn, like trial by fire, run in, you're going to learn. If you don't learn, you're going to get out type of thing. So it can be a survival of the fittest in that regard, but it's still, for those who enjoy that kind of every day is different. This is a good industry for you.
When I was at Edge and I was in charge of the brand and all that fun stuff, I was sort of obsessed with labels, right? Because we were just starting to can. So me and my graphic designer Jed, we were both obsessed with labels. We would go and travel and find labels that we like. Is this something that you do as well? Are there some labels, or is there a brand out there that you really like? And what sort of inspires you to kind of move forward with the Sockeye brand? And what do you think is out there that you guys haven't conquered quite yet with that story?
One thing I think, I'm going to pat myself on the back. I feel
Yeah.
one of the things we've done well is maintained a brand standard, especially after coming out of our rebrand. We went away from the old Diamond Fish a few years ago, from 1996, to what we have today, new branding and everything. We've really maintained just about anything that has our brand on it looks like it's from Sockeye. We have black banded on the top of the cans, maybe a little more wiggle room below the black band, but that's been, the common consistency. And that translates to our point of sale items, posters, LED signs, things like that. And I guess that level of like brand consistency is something I think we're really proud of around here.
So, what kind of inspirations do you find out there for your labels and all the other marketing kind of materials that you have to bring up for this awesome brand, Sockeye?
Yeah. So, one thing we're proud of, or I'm particularly proud of, is the amount of brand standard and kind of brand cohesiveness I've managed to kind of put together, especially after our rebrand. That was a big project, a big undertaking, rebranding a company that was just hitting 25 years at that point. But a lot of our can designs are so kind of turnkey and consistent that we don't get a lot of room to play. So what is kind of exciting for me is some of these projects, like what we'll talk about here shortly, a collab beer, where I get to branch out and kind of, we get to tell the story of a beer in a different way and have a little more fun with it. That's kind of where I get to, as a graphic design enthusiast, get to play around a little bit more so than maybe I do with some of our other like core brands, let's say. But ultimately, like Sockeye it's a cool brand to work with, and there's a lot of angles we can take, particularly here in the Northwest. Like, it's very relevant. It's very on people's radar. So
Yeah, who doesn't love Sockeye? It's a classic. It's also like kind of a neat looking fish. It's got that interesting hook nose that salmon have, and
a really
and
nice
it's
way
a
of saying, not toying or towing around the word ugly. It's kind of an ugly
yeah,
fish.
yeah. Salmon. When you the first time you pull a salmon out of the river, you are kind of like, oh, is this really what? It's a little surprising. And are there some brands out there that you've seen, maybe newer brands or your older brands or whatever, that you kind of like and that you kind of gravitate towards, and maybe you're not jealous of, but certainly ones that you look at and you think, wow, that's neat that they're able to do that sort of thing.
Absolutely. From a label by label basis, Anchorage Brewing has just epic barrel aged labels with some of the coolest artwork.
Those are cool.
Particularly one called Stop the Car for those interested. It's one of my favorite looking labels, very ominous and kind of a cool label. As far as a brand goes, I look to Sierra Nevada. I look at the Odells of the world. Odell, one, like, I guess, spill the beans a little. The collab's already out there, but we've got a cool collaboration with Odell, and that's a brand I personally have had an affinity for since the beginning. I love their branding. I love what they do to translate their brand onto cans, onto print. Just an incredible company to work with. So that would be kind of a major part of even why I got started in this industry, was brands like that.
Yeah, and when you look at something like that, like for me, I remember it was Stone. Stone was always the one I liked the most because it was a very rigid brand. It was like, that's what it is. We're Stone. Like, deal with it. But also, if you looked on the back of those 22s that they used to have, there was this. This is probably what got me to it more than anything. There was like a 2,200 word essay on the back of each one about the beer and everything like that. And it was always really fun to grab that bottle and read that entire thing and be like, who wrote? And then when I actually met the guys in charge, I was like, oh my God, this makes so much sense.
It's that, and it's Lagunitas, like
Oh,
old
yeah.
school Lagunitas pre Heineken days. That was always an entertaining one because it was less the essay, more like the ramblings of Tony McGee, like just
Hmm.
blurted out on a can, and those were always fun to read too, like the old Hop Stupids and
Yeah,
some of those old brands.
for sure. And the beers actually inside too. When they had some of those you would just be. I would, at least I would be at a bar and I'd order whatever, and I'd be like, "Wow, this brown sugar is really good. I'll have another," and then I'll have another. And it's like, "Hey, how come I can't see anymore?"
You're cross-eyed, Steve.
Somebody call this guy a cab or an ambulance or something.
Right.
Yeah, those beers were really good. And I agree with you on Odell. And yeah, we could talk about your guys' collab with Odell here. So you did another collab earlier in the year with Prost Brewing that was really good. It was pale lager or something like that. Yeah,
Yep.
pale lager.
Check Pell Lager.
Czech Pale Lager. We had Barnes on the show just a little while ago talking about that, and now you're doing another beer with Odell. I've always been the same way with Odell's branding too, and it's actually more jealousy than anything else. And I basically created the brand, but like you look at Odell and you're just like, they're having so much fun over there. Was that what it was like to work with them too on the beer?
Yeah, speaking with people from their marketing team, and uh, I know we have kind of a mutual friend in Derek Struble here in town. Their rep, their local rep, and then just getting to kind of integrate with their culture a little. They've got a very cool culture, but selfishly and or I guess not selfishly, but like the artistic side of their marketing is just so cool. As you know, like it doesn't have to necessarily be the Odell logo for you to know it's Odell. Like they've
Yeah,
made such a conscious effort with their artwork. Like when you see the can without seeing the logo, you already know who it is. So unlike
for sure.
maybe the Stone where it's like the gargoyles for like front and center, they've just done a really good job of brand from start to finish, and I admire that about them. But yeah, it was definitely fun to um, work with them, and I actually got to throw my designer cap on and throw together a label for it, which I'm pretty proud of. It was cool to work and have them be like, yeah, that's cool. Let's roll with that as the collab label. So little source of pride for me on that one.
That's awesome. They were early. I was an early Odell adopter. We had them in Utah for whatever reason when I lived down there, and I love their beers. I think they consistently put out an awesome product, and I can't think of a better brewery for you guys to collaborate with. I mean, they've been around for a pretty long time. You guys have been around for a pretty long time. You guys make really nice beers. You make kind of traditional. The thing Struble always told me, he's like, yeah, we have this cool artwork and everything else, but really we just make traditional beers the right way. And I was like, yeah, sort of. You guys have been, they've dipped into black IPAs and stuff like that, but it is true. I mean, I think both you guys kind of have that same sort of mindset, right?
I would agree. I think the Prost collaboration is really cool. Greg Barnes and the whole people at Prost, we got to fly our brewers out to Prost to work with them on a arguably the most state of the art brew house in the United States. It's just ridiculous. And the quality of beer that came out of that collaboration and what we learned and what, working together with the same distribution partner, Hayden Beverage here in Idaho, it was just a really perfect collaboration in that regard. With the Odell collaboration, it definitely is. There's the little bit of feels in there where we get to kind of work together with their brand and everything. And over the years, as they've grown and gotten into hazies and stuff like that, they evolved as the market needed. And Sockeye is doing the same thing, making tweaks to what we do here, and it's cool to see our brands working side by side.
Yeah, let's talk about some of those new beers you guys are making over there. You talked about the Italian Pilsner a little bit, and you recently just released a couple of different ones, right? You have a new Imperial Hazy, and then also talk to us about your single hop series and how that kind of came to be and the kind of inspiration behind that.
Absolutely. So, I mean, this year, our two new additions to our year-round features were our Multigrazzi Italian Pilsner, which we talked about, and then our Morning Provisions Coffee Lager, our Coffee Vienna Lager. That particular beer is really cool too. For those who may know him, Derek Brown, kind of a legend of the industry. We all love Derek.
Oh, Derek.
He also owns
sweet Derek.
a coffee roasting company called End of the World Provisions. So he worked for us for a brief period of time. Unfortunately, doesn't work with us at this time. Had some family stuff that he has to take care of. but still roast the coffee for that beer. So we still have a good connection with him, and he sources really great coffee, roasts it the way we want it. So it's a very subtle coffee, just crushable coffee lager that we're
And
pretty
he's
proud of
very
for.
tall.
He is
Very tall.
That's
Handsome.
actually just a gorgeous man.
Just handsome. Handsome
But
as the day is long.
but
Come back. Come back, Derek.
that's how am I supposed to talk after this, Steve? Jeez.
No, go ahead. Highlander.
But no,
He works at Highlander.
yeah,
Sorry, go
Highlander,
ahead.
which incredible beer too. But
Yeah.
our single hop series, going to what you asked about that, the single hop series is kind of, we were looking to replace Helldiver Pale Ale, kind of a staple, but we still needed a pale somewhere in the mix. So we started featuring local hops that were grown here in the valley, and now we've gone to using salmon safe hops. So for those who don't know, salmon safe is a certification that requires farms and manufacturers to adhere to, and those qualifications are, you don't want stuff going down in the wastewater or in the runoff water off the farm into the Columbia River Basin and essentially killing salmon. So it's a big, long certification process that essentially saves the salmon species or saves the sockeye species. So we have a really cool connection with that. Our most recent being the Strata hop, which is just absurd. If you haven't tried it, we have it on draft here at our pubs. And as
That
of
hop
tomorrow,
is very hot right now.
it's very hot right now. And tomorrow we'll be receiving wet hops from Roy Farms, directly from the picker. So we're doing a wet hop version of our Strata single hop pale that'll go into cans. And just side note, I know we were talking about that Odell collab. Shout out to Roy Farms too. That was kind of a three-way collab between the three of us. Roy Farms, Joe down there is he's a legend of the industry, and great people to work with over there.
Where is Roy Farms?
They're out of Moxie, Washington, so the Yakima Valley.
Okay, Yakima Valley. Cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, salmon safe. I'm Jake Black. Get a hold of you. Do you get your ear at a meeting or something like that?
No, it's just kind of something. I mean, we've talked about it, but that's just one of those things. It's like it makes sense for our brand. It makes sense for what we stand for and do, and there's very little overhead to become salmon safe for a farm. There's a lot of work to make sure those chemicals that you're putting on and going into the groundwater aren't seeping and stuff like that. There's several things that are part of that certification process, but we just think it's cool. Like, we want to be good stewards of our environment just as anyone else would.
Yeah, for sure. And something like that, if you can find hop farms that make the hops that you want, that adhere to those policies, and the more the merrier. Bring them in and give them a try. I've always said the most transformative event that's happened to me as far as that sort of farming goes is visiting the organic farm at was it Obendorf or was it Wilder? I think it was somewhere in Wilder. And anyway, I visited an organic hop farm one time, and it was amazing. There were ladybugs and spiders and bees and everything. It is really kind of a cool thing. So yeah, good for you guys getting on board with the salmon safe. We are all for the earth here at the Idaho Booze Podcast. We are earth friendly over here. So you have been in craft beer now for about 10, 11, 12 years professionally. What beer sort of got you going down this path? What was your kind of craft beer first beer?
Without being cliche, either Sierra Nevada Pale or Rogue Dead Guy probably would be the two that I would say. Like, those were like, my buddy had them in the fridge. My roommate at the time, who I opened a brewery with, Tyler Schmidt. That I would say that those were definitely impactful beers. I mentioned one earlier, Hop Stupid. Sorry, Hop Knox, just got Sockeye on the brain.
That's good.
Hop Stupid was probably the first IPA, and for anyone that knew that beer, legendary, just giant 9-10%er, nothing but hops and hops and hops, and it was kind of ahead of its time in my opinion. And that was definitely another one that's up there for me.
Yeah, Ruination was probably the first big hoppy, hit you in the face 9% beer that I had. It was like that. And then Hoptimum was another one that really just like, I was like, wow, this is like the greatest thing ever. But yeah, I'm with you. Mine was Sierra Nevada, the same, Sierra Nevada, and then Stone IPA, stuff like that. And Was there like sort of? I had this epic experience I've talked about on the show before. I won't get into it again. Was there an experience that sort of got you hooked on the craft beer kind of lifestyle, or like what we have going on over here in craft beer? Was there something like that?
Truth be told, when we started getting into home brewing, we had shoot, what was it called? The Dogfish Head documentary that was on
Oh yeah. What was
Discovery
that
Channel.
called?
I can't remember I can't remember what it
Sam.
was called.
Oh no, you're right. It's Brew something. Yeah, yeah. With Sam
Anyway, or
Caliglione.
Brewmasters, or yeah. So
Yeah,
that
Brewmaster.
particular show started showing me what the culture was capable of becoming. I just think that he's a steward of the craft beer culture. Like that guy is craft beer through and through. So I really enjoyed watching that. But I also got to meet Greg Cook from Stone. He came here for a market visit. I met him at Brewers Haven just
Uh-huh.
randomly. I walked up. I was like, I recognize that guy. Looks like the guy from my book that I had been reading. Walked up to him and said, "Are you Greg Cook?" And he said, "Yep. Nice to meet you." Blah blah blah. Did the whole thing. They were checking dates on bottles and stuff like that. And he invited us to Bitter Creek because I had a big promo that night. And we went down to the promo, had a few too many. He came to our table, just talked to us for probably an hour or so. And when I got to meet him, that was probably like my ground shaking like moment where I'm like, this is cool. Like,
Yeah.
look at this guy living his dream. And I think it kind of set it home for me for sure, meeting Greg Cook at Bitter Creek.
Samesies. Greg Cook, also the guy that I met that got me into craft beer as well. Completely different situation, but yeah, awesome dude. Still consider him still pretty friendly with him. Nice guy. So this is a good question for you. I think I know where you're going to go, but we'll see. So there's a prevailing attitude within our West Coast craft beer sort of community. You are either a San Diego or a Denver. So is it San Diego or Denver?
San Diego.
Yeah, totally, right?
I've
So
got a
awesome
trip
there.
planned there in T minus 3 weeks. So
Wow, that's
I
awesome.
spend a lot of time down there, and yeah, just a lot of respect for both beer cultures, but I'm a San Diego guy.
I mean, I say San Diego when I'm asked if I'm ever asked that as well. But when I'm in Denver, I'm just like, how could this place be any better? Like honestly, like, it's just so. But then I go back to San Diego, and I'm like, I
Depends
love the
on my
beach.
mood, I guess. But yeah, I can honestly tell you, I spend far too much money and time down in that place without living
That's
there. So
I can't. Yeah, I can't think of a better place to do it. So just getting back, I guess we'll get back to Sockeye a little bit here. Just wanted to see, like, sort of what the future is for Sockeye in your mind, at least right now. If you have any new beers coming up or any future programs like the Chronicles program, anything like that. Do you have anything like that coming up with Sockeye?
yeah, so we got one more Chronicles release for the year on October 1st. It's a peppercorn saison. Without giving away too much, it's going to be epic. That particular beer, the rye saison base, is just going to be absolutely absurd. Again, not a beer we'd brew otherwise, but for this program, it just fits. Um, Future of Sockeye, we've got the two locations. We've got the one here at Fairview and Cloverdale near Meridian, and then we've got the one on 36th and Hill Road, both of which are unique in their own regard. And we're working really well with. We just launched a new happy hour program, and business is booming at both locations for us right now, and that's been a good thing, I would say, locally. Looking into the future, we just launched Reno with Tavern Craft Distributing, which is our new partner down in Reno. So, looking to expand distribution beyond just, our smaller footprint. In the last few years, we've grown into all state Montana with Hayden Beverage, a little further into Oregon, soon to be a little Washington is the hope, and all of Alaska with RNDC up there. So we have some cool partners, growing distribution. So I think 2025 is going to be a big bright spot for Sockeye.
Love to hear that. It sounds awesome. Good for you. I'm excited to hear all that stuff. So let's talk about the quote unquote the new place. We were just talking before we were talking off mic, off wax about the new place that's been around now for a year and a half, which to me is insane. I feel like you just opened it. I feel like I was just at the opening, soft open yesterday, honestly. So what is happening out there on 36th and Hill, and what are you sort of excited about going on out there? What have you seen? Or have there been any challenges to it? Or are you finding that, people are kind of liking the new digs?
The challenge is it's not if you build it, they will come. It's got the Sockeye name behind it, but there is a lot of legwork that needs to be done to get the word out, get people in, give them that a good experience up front, so they're coming back, and listening to your customer. That whole area. There's not a lot of restaurants in the area. There are some great restaurants around there, but up on 36, there's nothing. Sorry, 36 and Hill. So to be the only restaurant there, it's seemingly a little more destination-y for people that maybe don't live in the neighborhood. But how do you establish a regular base has been the question, right? The regular base that Cole Road used to have back in the day, the regular
Yeah,
base that we have here, it just takes time and consistency. As long as we're offering good beer, good product, good food, and then in turn good service. I
the
think
service. Yeah.
those are the three tickets to success, and it's a continual getting the word out situation. Otherwise, the location's fantastic. It's fun. People will rent out the golf bar side for private events. Occasionally, we'll host tournaments in that side. So for those that don't know, 9-hole putting course in that side of the building is pretty cool. It's just a little, I wouldn't call it mini golf, so to speak, because it's not the clown mouth you're hitting to like Happy Gilmore does.
Someday.
But yeah, but it's definitely a unique, challenging, tiny little 9-hole course in there with its own bar. Um, so that's a cool aspect of it. And then again, just establishing the regular routine of live music on Fridays, trivia nights, just the things that people know breweries for, want to hang out in a brewery for. Um,
Yeah.
we finally established that, and we got a lot of good feedback from all those things.
Right on. That's good. And I can't stress it enough that it's a nice little spot. Yeah, the only other restaurants I know by there's a middle school that I assume has a cafeteria across the street, and then I think Quail Hollow Golf Course has a little snack shop. Not even that good of a snack shop, really. So if you are in the area, I definitely recommend hitting up Sockeye there on 36th. Before I get to my a little game that I have here, well, just one I kind of touched on a little bit. Helldiver Pale Ale coming back.
No comment.
Ah,
Can I do that?
you can do whatever you want.
Do
It's
whatever
your
I want.
interview,
There we go.
Tyson. So
No, no, no plan, no plans to bring it back in package. If it comes back, it would
I'm
definitely
just
come
here
back
to
draft only.
provide questions and puns. That's all I do.
There we go.
I just love I love that beer, and it's one of those beers where that's actually I had Dagger first, but really where I got to sort of kind of get into Sockeye as a brewery that I started to gravitate towards was Powerhouse Porter and Helldiver for sure. It's my favorite things. So the game I came up with isn't very good. So sorry about that. Next time you're on. By the way, next time we should do this live. We're on Zoom right now for
I
everybody.
agree.
I think we should do it live next time. Maybe do it on the putt course. We'll get our little iPhones and we'll record it. That'd be kind of
Done
fun.
deal.
We'll get Josh out there. I don't know, whoever.
Done
And
deal.
this is would you rather drink the beer or go down the rapid? Is the game
Okay.
for you here.
Okay.
First one is an easy one, I think. Powerhouse, the porter or the rapid?
The porter.
Porter. Okay.
I don't know much about the rapids, so I'm going to say
I think
the
it's a
beer.
waterfall. Helldiver Falls. You want to go down those rapids or have
The
that
beer. The
beer?
beer.
See where this is going. How about Dagger Falls?
I'm going to say the beer too.
Mm-hmm. And then
And I'm gonna preface this all. I don't kayak anymore. I used to be a lot more
anymore.
adventurous.
What happened? You had a couple of
I have
kids.
a couple of kids and life, bad back. But no,
Yeah, I
Dagger
know,
Falls,
right?
definitely the beer.
So
Definitely, I'm a company man.
I just recently did whitewater rafting for the first time, and I really enjoyed it. That was a lot of fun, and I didn't
It
think
is
it was
fun.
all. We had a bunch of kids. Well, your kids are, I don't know,
4 years
5.
old.
Okay, so yeah, I was gonna maybe a little young, but pretty soon be able to get them, strap them into the boat, get them out there.
Oh
And
yeah.
then last but not least, Seven Devils. You want to ride those rapids or drink that beer?
Uh, Is that Hell's Canyon?
It's Oh, it's nasty. It's like the worst. It's like they're like class
I,
fives. They're in Riggs. No, yeah, Riggs, right?
Riggins?
Riggins. They're in Riggins.
Near Riggins. Yeah. So, beer, definitely. I don't want
I
to kill
think
myself.
let's
The
get.
beer's
I think we
delicious.
should. We should get. We should get Ben, and you and I and him will go up there, and we'll die on the Seven Devils. I
Speaking of
would.
70s, to
Yes.
throw a little shout out, we
Who?
every year we do a single barrel reserve version of that. Last year it was all whiskey based, so Heaven Hill and
Tasty.
Elijah Craig were the
Mhm.
two barrels. This year's going to be Houston Vineyards out in the Marsing area.
Mhm.
So it'll be a wine based barrel. So I think that this year's is going to be pretty rad. It should be out in the next like 3 or 4 weeks.
Is that going to be part of the Chronicles series, or is that going to be something
Nope.
that we can,
It'll be a separate
can all
barrel
rely?
aged beer.
And
Yeah.
that's something we should maybe come back, going back to the Chronicles thing. Well, I'll just wrap it up. This has been Beer or Rapids. Thanks for playing, Tyson. You're a winner. You got them all
Hey,
right. Nice
I
job.
won. Always
Fine.
beer.
So is the Chronicles thing? This is something you can only get these beers if you're a subscriber. Is that correct? Unless there's some left over, then maybe you can buy some.
No, there's additional bottles available in our pubs.
Okay.
We don't send them out to distribution. Chronicles members will receive additional discounts on further bottles if they so want, which we get a lot of people that are like, they'll take a case. It's again very much like a wine club in that regard. But it's available to anyone only in our pubs.
Okay, so you can only get them in the pubs. And then I think it's also important to note that you guys have 6 packs to go. You have all your beer to go at both locations.
Yep.
And what would you say right now is the best food menu item for each location, do you think?
I'm a big Coal Road salad, kind of an OG. It's got a sockeye salmon on it.
Mm-hmm.
Just easily, if you're like looking for something that I would say is quintessentially sockeye that's not a fried food, like our fried salmon, salmon strips, I would go the Coal Road salmon.
Yeah, the
salad.
salmon burger for me is always my go-to
Yep.
when I eat
Yep.
there. So anyway,
Anything fish.
anything fish, you got to do it.
Yep.
You're at Sockeye and get that molto grazie.
Right.
Italian Pilsner. Well, Tyson Carden, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. Do you have
Thanks
anything
for
else to
having me.
say? Any events coming up? And keep in mind that this is not going to air this week, but probably next week. So anything coming up in the future?
Just hashtag drink like a fish. That's what I got to say.
That's not bad.
That's our motto around these places.
I do like that. I do like that motto. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. We'll be right back with Brew News, where it looks like the state has given in to local breweries in a request that'll save you money at the store. And the University of Idaho discovers a way to keep craft beer fresher for longer. My God in heaven. It's a breakthrough. All that, plus ice cream parlor beers and more coming up later in Friday Night Pints. This is the Idaho Booze Podcast. I'm Steve Kuntz. We'll be right back. This show is sponsored by the Idaho Brewers United, or IBU. Sign up for IBU's monthly newsletter at idahobrewers.org and get VIP access to brewery events, tastings, and news straight from the source. Be the first beer nerd on your block to download the IBU app and start earning points for free Gem State beer gear. It's only one email a month, so what do you have to lose? Sign up at idahobrewers.org today. It's Brew News. Oh, baby, we got a jam-packed Brew News for you today, starting with an amazing story. This shout out to our friends at IBU for fighting the good fight on this one, but it looks like the city of Boise has backed off its sewer fees. It was going to charge local breweries sewer fees retroactive. So they were going to charge fees to breweries for water they used a long time ago. And this is something that's been going on for a while. The fight has been going on for quite some time about this because the craft beer boom has brought a lot to this town. And now they're looking for their piece, I guess. It's not enough that craft breweries that relocated or started downtown have brought in more tourism, more people, more parking fees, all that stuff. Now the city wants water money. Holy cow. They were looking to get Man, it was looking at about 70 grand, says Colin Rudine at Boise Brewing. $70,000 in back fees for this sewer business. And this was originally one of those things that they told the breweries to come into Boise and build here because we will help you with your sewer issues and all that stuff. And we'll make sure that your water is cheaper because they saw, apparently the leadership back then saw what we all see, which is that these breweries do a lot for the city. And now the city to go in and try to collect these fees, just ridiculous. So it looks like they're just going to be able to raise rates in the next couple months. Let's see, they're going to raise rates by 34% in a month. Jeez, the city of Boise has gone insane. This is just insane. And if you have a problem with it, please make sure to vote in November because it looks like they're trying to run the breweries out of downtown Boise. And it looks like that Garden City and Eagle breweries are not going to be exempt from that either, as they're going to look at probably getting a knock on the door from the water managers in the near future. This from Boise State Public Radio. Great story. Awesome that they broke it. City of Boise, shame on you. Give the brewers a break. Good Lord. God, in parking alone on Broad Street, you'd think that Boise Brewing, Payette, Mother Earth, all of those guys would be able to just do whatever they want, although Mother Earth doesn't brew there. So it's just Boise Brewing and Payette. So you'd think that just that parking revenue alone would be enough to leave them alone, but I guess not, as the city of Boise will probably try again. But for now, a big win. Big win for Sheila, big win for the IBU. Nice job, guys. In other brew news, Idaho hops. Looks like they're looking to drop. Yeah, it looks like over there in the Hop Commission, they are shortening the amount of fields they're using for hops. So in 2011, there were just over 2,200 hectares of hops grown. That rose quickly with the craft beer boom. Looks like Idaho hop acres peaked at almost 10,000 acres, and it looks like they're falling now. They're down to about 5,800 acres this year. So 33% from the year before when they were about 86, and about half of what they were back in the heyday of 2021. So what does this mean? Well, I think this is an interesting story, and this comes to us from aginfo.net. Great job, guys. Maybe work on that masthead. Give like button a call. We'll set you up with a better website there. Anyway, so this tells us that people in the hop business think that not only are we looking at a down year for craft brewery production, but that it's going to go down overall. Now, I would say this. I would say caution, because there are a lot of good hop farms out there that do a lot of good business with craft breweries. And these other ones, maybe some of the ones that maybe jumped in to get sort of that money, are going to be able to pull out a little bit more and maybe go back to something else. Here's the thing with hops, though. Once you put in a hop field, you're kind of in the hop business because you have to put up trellises. You have to get special trucks. You got to get special ways to kind of harvest them. You have to make deals with like Mill 95 to get them processed and cubed or whatever and punched together and all that good stuff. So it's not like a small thing to just give up acreage of hops. It's not. So what I would say is, yeah, maybe like craft beer down a little bit right now, but I think coming up, what you're gonna see are some of these big craft breweries start to produce more and more. So that's gonna mean that they're gonna need more of these specialty hops for these bigger craft breweries. I'm thinking like breweries like Stone, breweries like New Belgium, Odell, some of those bigger craft breweries, Dogfish Head. I think what their plan is, at least kind of the way it looks, is they're going to strengthen their positions off-premise and on-premise, and they're going to start delivering more beer to each of their markets and then also expand globally. At least that's what it looks like to me. So if I were a hop farmer right now, I would for sure cut back a little bit. Don't completely get rid of everything, because that's a lot of infrastructure, a lot of work you've put into that. And there's a lot of great numbers in this story from aginfo.net. A lot of good stuff about hop production. I recommend checking that out. These links, as always, for Brew News in the show notes, so you can check that out. And our third story for Brew News is an old callback. People will know this one if they saw my last podcast. Let's get sciencey. Ooh, baby, just gives me chills down the back of my neck to get sciencey again with you people. And what are we talking about? We're talking killer yeasts. And what are we talking about them doing? We're talking about a potential savior for craft beer brewers battling spoilage, which is pretty much every craft beer brewer. You hate to see anything go bad, especially in your own warehouse or in your distributor warehouse. And these scientists, this is from scienceblog.com, better website, I will say. These scientists at University of Idaho came up with a plan. It looks like they've discovered that killer toxins that are produced by certain yeast strains can kill off 95% of brewery yeasts. And what they're looking to do is they're looking to get rid of these killer toxins in the yeast. So this is going to be an awesome step forward. We really love Dr. Paul Rowley, a microbiologist at the University of Idaho. Go Vandals. Way to go, guys, for getting this study up and going. It looks like the research team tested 34 yeast strains against the 8 killer toxins and other Saccharomyces strains. This is really sciencey. The results, striking. It looks like the most effective toxin inhibited the growth of almost just over actually 90% of the strains tested. And the K2 toxins were able to inhibit up to 95% of the problematic yeast. So this is really cool. Like this is a super exciting story, you guys. You got to take my word on this one. Because what it means is instead of pasteurizing the beer, which takes away a lot of flavor and just leaves a bad taste in your mouth, both literally and figuratively, brewers will be able to go out and get this from White Labs, get whatever this diastatic yeast killer toxin thing is. They're going to be able to buy this, put it in the beer. It's going to remain 100% organic. If it is an organic brewery, it's going to at least remain 100% natural, non-pasteurized. I mean, have a pasteurized beer against a regular beer sometime. It is not great. So this is going to be awesome. This process is going to be able to really help a lot. I just can't tell you how awesome it would be if we could brew a beer like not even like an IPA, like a cream ale or like a wheat beer, something that doesn't sell super fast, but be able to keep it in the back for the pub or whatever and know that that beer is not going to go bad. This is huge. I can't say enough how big this is. You have earned my Idaho College of the Week award. Congratulations to you and making brew news for this week. That was a great brew news. I was really excited about those stories. Anyway, we have Friday Night Pints coming up. I took a trip back out to see our friend Jimbo at the brewery. He has a new deal out there, and you are going to scream for it. All that coming up next in Friday Night Pints. This is the Idaho Booze Podcast. Friday Night Pints this week. Lots going on. We're going to start with our friends from Sockeye. And by the way, wasn't Tyson great? Such a great dude. Awesome story. The Sockeye story never gets old. I think it's just awesome. Great job by him. Thanks, Tyson, for coming on the show. Now to the beers. It looks like we're going to start with the Sockeye Odell collab that Tyson talked about. This is called Slingin' It. It's a golden ale. You get pie crust, lemon zest, cracker malt, all there on the nose. It's light. It's like citrusy and light. Like I said, it's like that sweet-ass beer. It's just got a lot of this like sort of fruitiness to it too, like a peachy taste and lemon and just these really nice light cracker malts all there on the palate. This beer, super crushable. It reminds me of both a Sockeye beer and an Odell beer. So great collab by them. You can get that on tap at both Sockeyes and in cans around town, wherever you find either Sockeye or Odell. I think it's like 5%, something like that. Sockeye, another new beer they had out. This is called Deep Dredge Hazy IPA. This is a really nice looking hazy. You really has a nice like kind of reddish hue to it. You get strawberry and melon there on the nose. All that carries through into the flavor with a nice finish. Not bitter at all. Really smooth, easy to drink. Deep Dredge, not my favorite name for a beer, but there it is. Deep Dredge Hazy IPA, 6.8%, 28 IBU. You can find that on tap at both Sockeye locations. And for a third beer from Sockeye, this one Tyson talked about, Baklava. This is part of their Chronicles program series of barrel-aged beers. This one pours inky black, no head at all. This is a barrel-aged beer. And you see that whenever you pour a barrel-aged beer, if it has a head on it, it hasn't been in the barrel long enough, I don't think. And this one certainly has spent some time in the barrel. No head, toasted pistachio, caramel, rice spice, oak, and more pistachio right there on the nose. It's very desserty, very sweet. There's a subtle sweetness to the nuts. That's kind of fun. I really like what brewers are doing right now with implementing different kinds of nuts. We've seen hazelnut. We've seen now pistachio. Pecan, obviously, is one a lot of people have used. So this one is pistachio. First sip, pretty great. Lots of caramel, roasted malts. Again, the pistachios are in there. And then you get that oak right on the end. It's kind of splintery. It tells you that it's been in the barrel for a while. So good amount of oak. The rye finishes the beer nicely. Just a little bit of spice. And yeah, like I said, this is from the Chronicle series. Pretty awesome dessert beer from Sockeye, 14.5%. You can purchase that in a little 12-ounce bottle, I guess it is, at either Sockeye location, or join that Chronicles program. We'll put a link to that in show notes. All right, now we are looking at some new beers from the brewery. I went over and saw our good friend Jimbo to say hi and sort of see what they were up to. And what they're up to, slinging giant beers. Oh my God, this place. So I was just going in to see what they had that was new, and I was pointed towards a couple of non-barrel aged beers. The first one, the Clementine Belgian Wit. Lots of orange, bubblegum, and coriander on the nose. Slightly hazy. Good-looking beer. Orange and coriander come through nicely. Nice, tasty little wit. I would say is around 5%, and you can find that on tap at the brewery. Bestie Westie is their new West Coast IPA. And the lady working behind the counter told me that it was a single keg, so might not be on when you get over there. Might be. If it is, good for you. If not, I'm sorry about that. Citrus and pine on the nose. Very West Coasty. Both come through on the palate with just a touch of lemon lime zest and a nice bitter finish like we like in a West Coast IPA. Bestie Westie coming in about 7%. So check that out over at the brewery. And then they had this big box of beer sitting there on the table. Beautiful box, blue, with like kind of an old-timey ice cream guy there. And in the box, 8 16-ounce cans of ice cream stout. So this is a touchy subject for me because I love ice cream and I love stout, but I've never really been a big fan of ice cream stout. But these things are delicious. I tried the Add the Drizzle. This is a chocolate sundae sort of beer. This one in the box, so you can get this in the parlor box, which that's what it's called, the parlor box, like ice cream, I guess like ice cream parlor. So this one, Add the Drizzle, chocolate sundae on the nose with vanilla and chocolate ice cream. It really did just taste like ice cream. I mean, or smelled like ice cream. You smelled it, you're like, this is a sundae. Pretty cool. The Dulce de Leche comes through in the finish. Very little whiskey or barrel in this that I got, so I found this to be a pretty straightforward dessert beer. And then the sea salt in there finishes the beer off nicely, 9.3%. So a light one over there on tap at the brewery and also in this parlor box that you can pick up. And then another one, this one looks like not in the parlor box. This one's called Because You're Mine. This is a rum barrel-aged beer. You get the rum, you get the raisins, you get the dried fruit and chocolate, all right there on the nose. Boozy finish. Ooh, this is a big beer. And then there's some strawberry in there, giving the beer a pop of flavor to go with that rum and cocoa. The cocoa sort of gives off some bitterness, but it's overshadowed by that rum barrel. And it's a delicious beer, really nice. I'm really kind of digging these rum barrel beers. I'm not a big rum fan, technically, but you know, the rum barrel beers I'm finding are pretty tasty. This one 13.3%. You can get that on tap at the brewery. And like I was telling you, this parlor box thing. So what it's meant to be is sort of a mix and match thing. There's 8 16-ounce ice cream stout cans in there, so you get 2 of each. First we split, then we scoop, add the drizzle, and finally the cherry. And that kind of goes together. That's neat. So yeah, you get that. 8 of those. So you can mix and match, make your own dessert beers, have fun with your friends. $125 for the box. Not a bad deal if you ask me. And it's a beautiful looking box, so go check that out at the brewery. Well, if you like Port of Naples is a barrel-aged porter that they have on tap. This one's light, chocolatey, has a nice bitterness to it, but oh boy, does that port come through hard. It's like just port. Like it's really... If you like port, it's great. If you don't like port, maybe not for you, I guess. The vanilla does offer a touch of sweetness in there. This one also a big beer, 13.5% on tap at the brewery. One more from the brewery. This one, Crush the Pint. This is a fruited sour, technically the Brewery Tarot series. This one described as a barrel-aged sour blonde ale with raspberry and vanilla. And I really enjoyed this one. This was one I got on the way out. Jimbo was kind enough to ask if I'd had enough of the barrel-aged stuff, and I had. And he said, how about something refreshing? I said, okay. So he offered this Crush the Pint. Very refreshing at 5.9%. It really is come through as like raspberry, vanilla. You get a little bit of cherry in there. And that blonde ale just really makes it nice and sort of light and breezy. These are the kind of sour beers that I like. Like these, it's lightly sour. It's not super puckering. It's just kind of tart. It's low alcohol. It's got tons of fruit in there. That vanilla really sweetens it up and makes it nice and easy to drink. And I really like this beer. So Crush the Pint. That's 5.9% on tap over there at the brewery. So check those out if you're in Meridian. And even if you're not, just go over to the brewery and check it out sometime, especially if you haven't been. Just make sure you use that Boise Beer Buddies card there. You get a nice discount. Went over to Boise Brewing and tried their Oktoberfest. This one pours amber with a thick white head. Plenty of bubbles in there. Honey, toasted nuts, lemony hops on the nose. Kind of heavy for a lager with notes of toasted almond, burnt sugar, lemon, and grassy hops. But the finish of honey and toasty malts really is nice on there. It lingers a little bit, but it is a nice beer. Tasty Oktoberfest. Can't wait to have some more of it at Hoptober Festival. 6.3%, 25 IBU. This one on tap at Boise Brewing. So that will do it for Friday Night Pints. I'm going to say thank you so much to Tyson Cardin from Sockeye Brewing Company for coming on and talking all things Sockeye. Really enjoyed talking to him and getting to know him a little bit better. Also enjoyed just talking about Sockeye. I'm just like you can probably tell, I'm a fan. I just like what they do. I like what they stand for. I just think it's a cool brewery. So awesome job by you, Tyson. Next week on the show, we'll have Nick Bobbin from Craft Lounge to talk cocks. We'll go over the Speakeasy empire he's quietly building in Canyon County, his favorite cheap booze, and how he plans to make each and every one of you a master bartender with his house-made syrups. Awesome guy. Great interview. You will not want to miss it. Thanks so much for listening this week. Really happy to have you all aboard. Email the show, idahoboozepod@gmail.com. And don't forget to subscribe and share on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Substack, and coming soon to YouTube Music. This has been the Idaho Booze Podcast. I am Steve Kuntz. Good day and good drinking, everyone.